Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Those Two Geeks. He's Alex, I'm Joe, but we're not alone today. We are joined by our now good friend of the show, author and creator of Crashing on IDW, Matthew Klein. And
hello. Thank you so much. It's so great to have friends, first of all.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, so more than a dozen is tedious.
Yeah, I'll accept now that I have more than 3. I'm thrilled. You know, I was never the popular kid in school, so this means a lot to me, guys. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, anytime. And it's so I wasn't really reading the group chat that we had last night, and all of a sudden I see, Matthew's coming on tomorrow. Cool.
Yeah. It was a surprise to me too, Alex, but I'm a big proponent of yes and. I come from an improv background here and there. So absolutely. You never say no to an invitation with your friends.
No, exactly. Yeah. And like I said, it was I caught something, hey, as long as Alex is fine with that, I'm like, hey, I'm always happy to chat. It just means I actually have to be ready to go at 9:30 as opposed to Joe and I's usual. We'll record at 9:30. Sure. So we start at 10
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like I actually I'm for the first time in a while we were both good to go on time.
Yep.
So if nothing else, you make us punctual.
Oh, well, my goal is just to help bring the best out of you two. That's my goal for any of these, I promise.
That's a lofty goal.
Good luck with that.
So
I'm what Jeff Jarrett would call delusional optimist, you see.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay. Gotta love. Before we tangent into wrestling, we actually had a plan today to talk about Crashing first, because we always forget about Crashing in your webcomic, and we always end up tangenting because, as we've said, you're a friend of the show, a friend of ours, and we don't have plans. So when we do have plans, we try and stick to them until we tangent. And I could hear Joe's wheels start going as soon as you mentioned Jeff Jarrett. I was like,
that's totally fair. My apologies. I started us off. I almost veered us off the track very early on.
I think the second time you were on, I mentioned that I'd started watching AEW, and that's all we talked about for the entire show. We were supposed to promote your book. So yeah, it's nothing new or surprising. I just thought it was amusing that it was you this time that tried to sidetrack us. So Crashing, the 5 issues are out.
Yes.
Yep.
The trade will be out soon. The trade will be out July 4th, just in time for America's quasi birthday.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I completed this yesterday, actually, because I had read everything but 4 and 5. And then I said, you know what? It's been a real while since I remember issue 1 distinctively. And then I said, all right, let me go back. So I ended up reading 3 through 5 yesterday. And I really enjoyed it quite a bit, as I'm texting you, Matthew. And it definitely has the feel, like I can totally see this as a short miniseries on a streaming service. The way it's written and the way it moves. Yeah, I hope so too. But so we were talking, and I was saying, I did some fan casting for if there was a streaming service or a movie, let's say. And I only did 2 because Rose I'm kind of stuck on, and Dawn I don't care. After 5, I'm like, no, I don't know. I'd have to really think about it. But
spoiler alert for anybody listening that's not read the series yet.
Yeah, exactly. So for Rex, I picked Makad Brooks.
That's a good one.
That's
a really good one.
Yeah. And then for Piper, I don't know why. So I kind of I did a gender swap on this one.
Sure.
Because Piper every time I hear Piper, I think of a girl's name. I don't know why. And then 2, just kind of the features and whatnot. So I went with Brianna Hildebrand from Deadpool as Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Oh, yeah. That's a solid one. That's casting. I like that.
Thank you. And then Rose, I was going back and forth because I'm like, well, she's not old, but she's not like super youthful either. So like the first one that came to my mind was Gwyneth Paltrow, and I was like, that might be a little too too up in age for her. So then I was like, who would be kind of unnoticeable? Because Rose isn't like a knockout, you know what I mean? She's relatable, and you want a good actress. So I was like, she hasn't done shit in a while. What about Julia Stiles?
Julia Stiles would be cool. I'd be down for that. I've gone back and forth with Rose a few times as well. Part of me is like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead would be really good.
Yeah.
In my brain, when we were thinking about this, I think my original idea was Yvonne Strahovski, who's on *Handmaid's Tale* right now, formerly of Chuck, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. And then you'll appreciate this, and Alex, hold us back here. Heracles was originally the model I gave Morgan for it was Roman Reigns.
Oh my God. Okay, I can see that. Yep.
I wanted that sort of like French Polynesian kind of character for it. By the way, his French accent is completely fake. That is something he puts on just to put it on. That is not his real accent. It's never addressed in the book, so I don't feel like this is a spoiler. It's just a fun character moment.
Because it's out of left field.
Yep,
with the
absolutely.
way he talks, the rest of his dialogue, I'm like, when he throws it in, I'm like, okay.
It's pure act. It's pure mustache twirling, pretentious douchebag kind of thing, and that's the character trait. It's a completely fake accent. But yeah, no, that's cool. The other Rose I could think of, she was on Daredevil and True Blood, was Deborah Ann Woll. Would also be incredibly cool casting if that show ever got made. So there it is. I'm putting it out into the universe. Those are my 3 top picks for me. But I like Julia Stiles. I think Julia Stiles is a great idea, Joe.
I've always liked her. She's very understated. You know what I mean? And I think she's she's not a beauty, but she has great acting chops. And like Guilty Pleasure, 10 Things I Hate About You is one of my all-time favorite movies.
It's a phenomenal film. How dare you call it a guilty pleasure? It's just a great movie. And listen, Joe, I have friends who will fight you on the "she's not a beauty."
I was gonna say I
have friends who've met her in person and actually danced with her in a club. Who will fight you to the death on that one.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was in Save the Last Dance too. I really dug that movie as well.
Save the Last Dance. I think she was also in O, which was that teen version of Othello with Mekhi Phifer and Josh Hartnett. So like after 10 Things I Hate About You, she was in like another teen Shakespeare adaptation. Was on the verge of sort of getting typecast into that. So Alex, if you want a tangent, Julia Stiles filmography and teen Shakespeare adaptation films, this is where we're at, my friend.
I was gonna say, like, she was also in the Bourne movies, or
she was
a chunk of them as well. And it's funny. So you said 10 Things I Hate About You. I don't think I remember watching Save the Last Dance, but I definitely remember her in. I remember her in The Bourne Identity, but again, it was the others that I tended to watch more often.
Sure.
So I remember seeing her in that, but
I like your fan casting, Joe. I think these are really really fun. I want you to know, Joe, what you just described, your reading experience. I remember one really well, and then I got some of the issues, and then it took me 4 or 5 months to actually finish reading the miniseries. This is what I'm hearing from stores all over the country. This is what people are doing with new IP miniseries across all publishers. So I want you to know you are setting the trend for what readership is doing in comics.
Naturally, and I appreciate that.
But you're not wrong. Like the amount of times when we're selling something, like you get a large order on the first issue, but the second, third issues tend to sit for a bit. So we'll put that once the miniseries is done, we'll put it out as a set, and then you can't keep it on the shelf at that point.
And that's just it. It's the binge, right, Alex? Let's keep the conversation going, because my day job is I am a U.S. sales rep for Penguin Random House, and my entire job, day to day, I spend 50 hours a week talking and selling to comic book shops. I have the West Coast accounts, Texas accounts, Arizona accounts, and some key accounts across the country on the East Coast and Midwest as well. And one of the main things we hear all the time, especially now, is that if you have a new IP and it's a 4 or 5 issue miniseries, they order up on number 1, people buy number 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5 will sit there. If you do a set, like you say, Alex, they move, but a lot of it is trade waiting. These customers will just wait and pick up the trade if they remember to. And it's not because they didn't like the book. Let's be very clear. It has nothing to do with they didn't like the book.
No, I've been guilty of it too. Like there's a couple issues I picked up, and obviously because we ordered light on some of them, I missed the second issue. So like, well, I could. By the time I realized I missed the second issue, which was also part of the problem, because I think it was a Scout series, and they tend to wait 2 months between the first and second issue. So by the time I realized I missed the second issue, I'm like, well, at this point, I'm just going to wait for the trade, because I'm far enough removed now that I'm going to need to reread issue 1.
Right.
So that was one of those moments where the delay, I get why they have the delay, so it helps drive people to go check it out. You've got more time with issue 1 on the shelf. It didn't favor me in that case, because I got issue 1, I think, within the first week, and then by the time issue 2 should have come out, and I should have realized I didn't have it on my pull list, it had kind of slipped my mind. And but I think we then sold out of issue 2 before I even noticed it. So
Alex, I think one of the things too we're talking about here is, one, the power of pre-ordering, and putting it on your pull box, right, guys? Like it's
100%.
And you don't get that with 4 or 5 issue miniseries of original IP. You really don't get high pre-orders. Second, too, is and this is something I go back and forth with my team on with publishers all the time, is how long between the issue goes on sale versus issue 2 goes on sale. But you understand this too, Alex and Joe, from the ordering perspective. Retailers don't like if they have to place orders for 2 before 1 goes on sale, right?
Yeah.
But printers over the last couple of years, because there was a paper shortage, because everybody was running to the same 4 printers to get their comics made, publishers had to push, and they had to put FOC, which is the final order cutoff. That is the day that retailers are required to give their final orders, and those are the numbers that publishers print to. But those had to be submitted like 3-4 days before the issue would go on sale. So they have no sales history. They're ordering blind. And because most books are non-returnable, it's not the same as the book market. The book market will order 9 months, 12 months in advance, but they have returnability from most distributors. They have a lower discount point. Like, that's the thing. They have lower discount, but they have returnability. But also, in general, book publishers print for a 2 or 3 year amount of inventory. Comics publishers print for a 2-week amount of inventory, which I think is a bit of a mistake, but I also understand it. I've been on the other side of that. And so if there's no sales data before you have to place the order on issue 2, if you have no sales data from number 1, they order a lot tighter. And so all of a sudden issue 2 goes out. One of the things that frustrates me, Alex, and I see this all the time, and it used to drive me insane at Valiant, is that retailers will order enough of number 1, but they will sell out before issue 2 comes out. And how many times are you in a shop, Alex, where a reader doesn't discover a series until they see issue 2, but you're sold out of 1, and so now you can't get them on the book? And that frustrates the heck out of me, because there's so missed sales opportunity there.
And I think, I mean, this is an opinion that I had for a while, but especially when you had the amount of variant covers that Valiant did have, I know there were people that would collect each variant cover, so maybe you still only orders in enough to cover the variants. So it looks like they have a huge market for the first issue, but what's actually happened is one person's bought 40 copies of the same comic because they want the variants.
Yes.
And then the second issue comes out and they're not doing that. So then you've got 5-6 issues sat on the shelf and they don't go anywhere because you can't sell. Selling the second issue without the first issue is always going to be tough.
It's so hard. And I used to have retailers be so proud. Hey, we sold out of issue 1 on the first day. And I went, hey, you under ordered.
Yeah, right. 100%.
Like, you under order. You just lost money. Like, that's the thing. You lost money not just on issue 1 because you don't have any for Friday's crowd, for the weekend crowd, for the following Wednesday, but you also don't have any on sale for when issue 2 comes out. And when issue 2 comes out, you have a chance to make more sales. Because to your point, Alex, if you have issue 1 and there's an issue 2, 3, 4, or the entire set, you can sell all of it at once. And I always advise publishers, I'm like, if you're doing a second printing or a third printing or a fourth printing, there is value to having that second and third and fourth printing as close to number 1 as possible, because you keep the marketing heat on it, but make sure you have copies available when issue 2 comes out. Sometimes I think there's greater strategy in putting the reprint of a second printing or a third printing when the same day issue 2 goes on sale, because then you have both of them next to each other on the shelf. You know what I mean?
That would be smart.
You can make that additional sale and sell them 2 comics, not 1. This is also the thinking when publishers do a weekly series, right? Because retailers will still have the previous issue in stock and they can sell multiple issues at the same time. Where that gets into trouble is, again, you have no sales data as you are placing an order on a weekly series. You'll have sales data from number 1 by the time you're placing an order for number 5, which retailers absolutely hate. Which is why when DC would do it, they would do like returnability on the entire series to try and give a little bit of a cushion there. Returnability also is fraught with risk. Publishers generally lose money on returnable series, and a lot of times it's very hard. And distributors lose money on them, which is why Diamond stopped doing them for a long time, why Image no longer did it. And it's why Boom had to stop doing it, because Berserker nearly killed them. Because people were ordering 1,000 copies and returning 999 after they got the Keanu Reeves signed variant, right? So like, even that is fraught with risk on so many different levels. So it's a constantly adjusting formula that you're trying to hit when you're trying to get people to buy a 5-issue series for brand new IP. It's very challenging. And what we're describing is not new. This is something that's happening all over the marketplace with every publisher.
I had no idea that Boom had offered.
I
had no idea Boom offered Berserker as returnable.
Yes. So Boom has a Boom Guarantor program or Boom Guarantee program. So every single month they had, I'm not sure exactly what it, because I don't have a Diamond account because I'm working with PRH now, and I'm not a retailer anymore. But they had a Boom Guarantee program where certain issues every single month were returnable. By the way, this is not a knock on Boom. I think Boom did an incredible job figuring out their formula and building their brand. They are one of the best for publishing original IP. They are phenomenal at it. They figured it out. It took years, but they did a great job. The secret variants, the constant reprints that they would and by the way, publishers have to schedule second, third, fourth printings before book 1 ever goes on sale. What you do is you print the interiors of the book all at the same time for issue 1, because that way you keep a higher discount, and then you just simply have the second or third or fourth cover design ready to go. And when you're ready to hit print on the cover, it's a much cheaper cost, so that you print enough interiors to plan out however many thousands of copies you want to go back to print on at the very beginning. That is a shell game, but it is a very effective one as a marketing tool to convince retailers and fans that things are hot. And you might have only, like, I remember these Savage Shores from Vault had 5 printings of number 1. They sold a total of maybe 5,000 or 7,000 copies across those printings. But they were able to use that game to build up the interest by continuing to announce they went back to print, right? And that's the whole that's the entire way you do those printings. But bygones there. But Boom is brilliant at that, and they help build a brand off of that. They built creators off of that. So every single month, though, one of their big things was that a select number of titles every single month were returnable, and retailers love that. And it helped generate big numbers that you could report to the public for those number ones. So much of it is perception, right? Perception is everything in sales and marketing. It's what you do. It's why Valiant would hype up its sales numbers. It's why Valiant would do so many crazy variant covers and everything. You want the heat. You want people thinking of your book. You want retailers paying attention to that book. So it's all marketing.
You want heat in a good way.
Oh, absolutely. Good or bad. Controversy creates cash, right, Joe? So
okay, Eric Bischoff. Okay, EB.
Even in a bad way, you're still getting your name out there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes you have bad publicity, and that gets people to make the curious buy, right?
Correct.
The curiosity buy. So even that is not necessarily as detrimental as you think. Oh, you get a lot of negative noise, but you get a very positive bottom line. And the smart business people pay attention to the bottom line first and the noise second. You still pay attention to the noise, but the noise is not your final determining factor if you're a smart business person, which Marvel is brilliant at. And it's one of the reasons they don't do certain things, even though retailers, complain about them, because they don't have to, because they're looking at the actual data. So it's and they can afford to, because they're the market leader, right? They're in a whole different position. So that's really the mindset that they come with. But yeah, Boom Berserker was returnable. I think Once and Future #1 was returnable. Something's Killing the Children #1 was returnable. Like most all their big series had some level of returnability and something along the lines of a secret variant and 7-8 printings and retailer exclusive variants, and you've got to use a whole tool chest full of tricks to get an original IP to be a breakout hit. It does not happen as organically as people like to think it does.
So for the reasons you just described, I think you see a trend with new IPs in the market that usually the second printing now has a higher value than the first.
Yeah, well, it's much rarer. It's much. Yeah, I mean, they all are. Every publisher's second printing is, and the third printing is more rare than that. The trend, though, is that single issue comic sales have gone down. The number of actual readers of single issue comics have gone down. I've talked to stores where they have told me that they went from new release single issues were 30% of their sales 5 years ago, and it is down to 20% of their sales now. And that is because, to Alex's point, you have people buying 4 or 5 covers. You don't have 5 people buying the book. They are binging. They are binging. It's what they're doing. They are waiting for the trade. They are supporting a Kickstarter. They are doing different things. They are not just coming in. And you continue to see the readership for single issue comics increase. 35, I think, is the median range now for a single issue comics buyer. It's just what it is. It is aged up significantly. Meanwhile, the median age group for a manga buyer is 18 to 25 now. They've also aged. 10 years ago, it was 12 to 16. Now it's 18 to 25. Manga is starting to have a very similar trajectory. It's very fascinating.
Yeah. No, I mean, so basically we're a binge society. Everything's streaming, everything's platforms, everything. So I think you just hit the nail. That's probably why, which I hate, but it's probably why we see so many #1s of legacy series constantly getting pumped out, because of what you're saying. The ones sell.
They sell better. They sell better. There's a reason that Marvel and DC do it. They sell better. I look at the numbers, guys. They sell better. It's just what it is. But you have to know who your consumer is. Now, the thing that's interesting that I'm also hearing is that new release issues the resale value, the collectability is going down. Finally.
Really?
I mean, oh yeah, collectible comics have been on an incredible tear in the last, honestly, like 4 or 5 years, but especially the last 3. It was inevitably going to start coming down somewhere. And it looks like new release single issues are finally where we're starting to see a little bit of a come down in terms of value. They're not keeping their value for as long as they used to. And getting an option is not the same as getting a series, so that pumps the value up a bit, but it doesn't pump it past like the $30, $50 range
unless
it's like the 1 in 1,000 variant, if a publisher could do that. So but that's what I'm hearing from all over the country and retailers of every size is new release single comics, the collectability of it does not have the staying power it did 3 years ago. And that's where you're starting to see it come down, which also means that they are less likely to invest as much cash into it because they don't see the secondary market value either.
Yeah, you're weeding out the speculators. You know what I mean? But it was gonna course correct anyway because
it had to.
It was unfreaking natural. Every book that had any mention of a character that existed ever was going up because of a movie or a show or a possible project. It was just nuts.
I would talk to vendors at shows and they would say to me, it's never been like this before because they don't know the value of the book 1 week to the next. I'm looking at books when I'm at Emerald City Comic Con that 5 years ago was a $1 bin book and now it's $150. When did it go up to $150? 2 weeks ago. So it's like there's no way to predict it anymore, whereas they kind of used to be.
And by night 32.
Who'd have thunk it, right?
Untouchable.
Right.
Not 5 years ago.
No.
But untouchable. You can't. So I mean
and Alex, you can speak to the back issues thing even better. You're the shop you work in.
Like so we had a couple guys in last week or the week before, and they've been in a lot. They're both relatively new comic collectors in their early 20s. And one guy, he's working on a run of a certain series, and he said that he hadn't been in for a while because he'd been finding a bunch of trades that he's just been reading because he wants to read the stories as well, and he was finding the trades for the same price as a new release single issue comic.
Yeah.
So he's like, I've got like a stack of stuff that I was reading and it's great, and he said, but I also want to make sure I've got the single issue so that I can collect them and kind of invest. And I said, investing is never the best idea. He's like, no, I'm getting them because I want to have them, not because I want to make money off them. Like, what?
Right.
That's the way to do it. So he was looking at like certain Daredevil issues that he wanted to have, and his friend was looking at like Spider-Man stuff and X-Men stuff, and he's like, I don't know if I want to like I want to have this because the cover is just amazing, but I don't know if I want to read it. And I said, so but do you want to read the stories? Like, absolutely. I'm like, well, I mean, you can buy the Epic collections.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, so he ended up walking out with over $150 worth of stuff, of which some of it was actually like expensive Spider-Man books. But there was also an Epic collection there because he wanted to read what he just bought, but he also wanted to like own and collect the comic and kind of respect its age.
Sure.
And not open it and read it and and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Like, that's someone that's just new into the hobby. It's not too different from what I would have done 20 years ago. Like, buy an expensive book, but because it's expensive, you don't actually want to read it. You just want to love it and appreciate it. But if you want to see what's in it, these days I'll happily just like if I've got to change the bagging board anyway, I'll slice it with a knife, like the top of it, open it, gingerly look through a couple of pages just to say I've done so. But for the most part, I would rather read an Epic collection or a trade, because I don't have the for the most part, most trades aren't keeping the same value.
No.
And I don't mind being having those go like, well, there's a scuffed corner here and that's fine, whatever. Some hardcovers are worth more than the comics themselves, which is baffling. But
some omnibuses too.
Yeah, that's just it. Like the omnibuses are expensive.
Well, again, they're print to sell out.
Yeah.
Like that. They are print for a secondary market. They are print for a collector. That is the mindset for the publishers, and it works for them. And they're very expensive to make. And they're so expensive that those are usually the books that have to be printed overseas for publishers.
Interesting.
Because it's way cheaper to print in Singapore or India or South Korea as opposed to printing in Montreal. It's way cheaper over there, which is why they do it. But it also takes a lot longer, which is another reason why they do it. And they have to solicit 3-4 months early. So, and again, same way in books. Books do that as well. It's not new, and people have been doing it far longer than there have been comic shops. But it's just one of those things where the omnibus marketplace is for collectors. Trade paperbacks, the Epic Collection, those are for readers. Single issues, we like to pretend it's for readers, but it's not. Most single issue comics are not for readers; they are for collectors.
Yeah.
And that is why you get variant covers. You get variant covers because they are appealing to collectors. And we would see it at Valiant. The sales would drop precipitously if we had fewer than 3 or 4 covers on an issue. It just would.
Yeah. So I mean, I learned a lot about the sausage.
There's no reason not to do them if retailers are buying them. You know what I mean? That's the other thing. Like,
well, that's just it. If people are going to buy it, you're going to produce it because it's an easy way to boost sales. It makes complete sense as to why you would do it.
Yes. I tell retailers all the time who complain about certain publishers, like, why are they doing this? And I go, well, how many are you buying? And then they tell me an astronomical number, and I go, that's why. And they go, yes, but I hate doing it. And I said, yes, but you're still doing it. That's all they see. That's all they care about.
They don't care if you hate doing it if you're doing it.
It's called a business.
Exactly.
Correct.
That's just it. Like they're there to make money at the end of the day.
They're not hobbyists. The publishers are not hobbyists. They're not in it because they're just fans. They're in it because this is their living. This is their career. They are there to they're there to run a business. You also have to run your business. So I get that you hate doing it, but you're doing it because you make money doing it. So you can disagree philosophically and ethically. I totally get that. I understand it adds to your workload. I totally get that. If you keep doing it, they will not stop doing it.
Exactly. We've had a couple of people come in that specifically want a certain cover. But ironically, the cover they want is just a regular cover. They don't want anything, anything specific.
Nope.
Like, I just want the regular cover. I don't want a variant cover because I don't want to start collecting variant covers. I just want the regular A cover. So for the majority of the time, when there are variant covers available, we don't tend to get them. And I think it's fascinating that other than I rarely will ever collect variant covers, but with Marvel's Disney variant Amazing Spider-Man covers,
they're so smart.
Like those are ones that I've picked up for no other reason than I fully intend to put them on the wall going up my stairs once I've got all of them.
Well, we used to do that at Valiant too, Alex, if you remember, because I know you're such a diehard Valiant guy, but we used to do variant sets for titles, and that's why you do that. You create a set because it creates a feeling of I gotta collect them all, to steal a Pokemon phrase. And it works. Like you get people, but it's another way that you get people to subscribe in the shop because they don't want to miss the cover of that set the next time it comes out. And Marvel is genius at it. Look at their Hellfire Gala variants, right? People are going to come in and say, I want one of every Hellfire Gala variant. And those are going to be books that they are not reading, 18 of 20 of them. They're not actually reading that series, but they want that cover because they want to complete that set. Same with Disney 100. Same with, they do them every month. They do a variant program. And why do they do it? Because it works. But they also understand those are not for readers. Those are for collectors. They understand the difference between the two markets. Marvel is very, very good at that.
When they did Marvel's 80th with Alex Ross, it went across like 40 books you would never touch with a 20-foot pole, but because it was Alex Ross, you're like, well, I want that cover.
Those,
you know
those
what I mean?
timeless villain variants they just were doing with Alex Ross. People are buying books that they're not reading, but they're telling their shops, "Please have this for me."
We've got people that say, "Hey, I just want every timeless variant."
Yep.
Okay. Do you care? Nope. I just want every timeless variant.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and what I see some of the best shops doing is they're very smartly coming up with ways to subscribe to a variant program and or to an event series wherein you essentially are creating a new item code in your POS system and putting that as an affiliate with the UPCs for the specific programs or the events. And they'll say, here's your checklist of titles. If you want to, click this button or, check this box, and you will automatically subscribe to all of these, right? And that way it makes it way easier for the shops, and it makes it easier for the customers because they only have to sign up to one thing once, the same way they would to a series. Now they sign up to a variant program or to an event. And I think that's genius. And I think it's a great thing that every shop should look into doing, because most publishers will give you a checklist. Like we at PRH do that. We put together checklists and say, here's every Alex Ross Timeless variant. Here's every Hellfire Gala. It's a spreadsheet. Take it, upload it to your POS, create it as one single bundle that you can subscribe to. And absolutely, people get more sales that way because it's so much easier to do.
No, it's definitely smart. So before we pivot off of this, just because I'm getting pressed for time.
Understood.
So I have to say, rereading Crashing, issue 3 stuck out to me the absolute most. I would call it the highlight of the series.
People really like issue 3. It's one of my favorites. It's so hard to write. That was the most drafts. I'm not gonna lie.
The ending was shocking. So it kind of went by me the first time, and then I glanced at it again because of the subtext on the following issues. So Rose operating.
Yes.
And failing.
Oh, that's issue 4.
That's issue 4. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's my favorite issue, personally.
So that is my favorite issue. I mean,
I love that issue.
I wanted to speak on that personally because Rose operating while in that condition is such a relatable addict thing, because at the beginning of the series, you saw how she's like, hey, look what I did on just one. I got this licked. I am in the saddle. I can handle this. I'm good. So I guess I could handle another one if need be. But her being in such complete bad shape, and basically, Hippocratic Oath, right? Yes. If you ever seen the show Dr. Death, it kind of reminded me of that, where Rose didn't do it intentionally, but knowing how bad she was, she should have never made that surgery. Chances are if she didn't do that, someone else could have done it and saved Piper.
Well, there was no one else. That was the thing too, right? That was the justification.
Exactly.
Both her and her boss on some level. Right. And that was very important in that issue. Spoilers here, folks. This is massive spoiler, blaring the sirens kind of alert here. But this is the issue that puts Rose to complete rock bottom with her addiction. And this is one of those things where it was really important to me and Heather Antos, the editor, where we had to justify her doing this decision by saying there's literally no one else. Either he dies if she doesn't operate, and there's a very good likelihood he dies if she does operate, but she is still convinced because of what she did in issue 1 that she can pull this off, even though she's high as a kite.
And that was so unbelievably well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We were really proud of that. Believe it or not, that was the easiest issue to write in terms of it was the fastest. Well, and that's how it should be. As a writer, when you get into a good groove, if you set things up really, really well, it is very easy to make them pay off later. All great storytelling, the payoff ties into the setup. So if you nail that setup, the end of the story is right there. All you got to do is reach it. It's waiting for you. It's creating like issues 1 through 3. Those were tough. 3 was the hardest because of the amount of flashbacks and jumping back and forth. 4, though, because we had done our job so well with those previous 3 issues, I wrote that faster than any issue. That got greenlit by my editor faster than any other issue. It had the fewest rewrites. That dialogue came
so well
effortlessly.
done.
Like it felt like I was just channeling people talking. It just came right through me. So that was, but that's because of what we had done before. That's when you know you're really onto something.
Yeah, I mean that was when after I read her doing the operating, I was like, okay, this would be incredible in live action. This scene,
sure.
Like that was like what sold me completely. I'm like, no, this has to become some kind of a mini series or something because it's just so well done. Sorry about my dog in the background.
No, you're fine.
But
pups are always welcome.
Yeah, but on top of that, the aftermath of that, and then the sequence where Dawn is being taken and whatnot, he just becomes such an First of all, he was dry as toast for the whole series, and I don't know if you did that on purpose.
A little bit.
But he became so freaking unlikable because number one, he wasn't driving the car Rose was driving. It was an accident. Number two, this is such a big thing from me because I've gone through this with partners in my life. When you are with a addict or somebody who has an issue, if you're told going in and it's apparent and you're made aware of it, if you're going to be in that situation, you need to understand it's an ebb and flow situation. It's similar to something, with any long-term chronic issue. It will rear its head from time to time. It is not going to be all roses and it's not going to be perfect. And if you get into it, you have to be aware that support comes in so many different ways. And you can't just bow out because shit gets rough one time. And, it's just, I read that and I was like, this is heartbreaking because she does love Dawn. I don't know why, but she does.
Well, he saved her life a few times. He was there through a few overdoses. He was there through, but also it's not just love, it's guilt. You know what I mean? Like, well, I don't know that she actually loves him. I think that she's so guilty that she feels like she has to make it up to him. And this is how she does it, is by being his partner and supporting him. And he is, we established early in the series, he was there and kept her alive after she overdosed and got her help and stuck with her through previous relapses, right? Yeah. But also he uses it to control her, and that's the thing. Yeah. He holds that against her before he knows what she did to him 7 years ago. So that's what makes him a piece of shit. Let's be very clear. Yeah. Apologies for cursing. But no, he's one of those guys who's like, I'm the good guy. I'm just a nice guy. I can't be a bad guy. What are you talking about? Right. Which is so fun to write. It's so fun to write that character. And because I can just walk out onto the street and you see them all the time. What do you mean I'm the bad guy in the situation? I'm not the bad guy in the situation. I mean well. How can I be the bad guy? Right. Right. It's that thing. It's like, since I have good intentions, I can't possibly be at fault. And they get so scared and defensive when you do say, no, it's your fault. You're the it's you. You're the problem. And that's Dawn. That's very much Dawn.
Once the reveal, the switch went immediately. There was I get it. You're mad. It's your sister. I mean, who wouldn't be mad? But listen, if it was somebody you didn't know that you weren't married to, you'd be mad too. But at the same time, it's an accident. Could happen to anyone. And the fact that this woman's your wife and all of a sudden she becomes the biggest waste of life to you within an instant is incredible. So to me, that's very realistic too, because people are that way. And I'm just like, wow, that's where he became so unlikable. And when he got blasted, I was like, oh, I hope he dies. I hope he dies. And then when there was no body, I was like, oh, God damn it. He's going to be around. But it was so well done.
I will say this: if an Arc 2 gets greenlit, we will find out. But if it gets greenlit, I think you will hate Dawn even more. I have plans for Dawn. We have plans for Dawn, I should say. Me and Heather both. But it's gonna be. We'll see. Hopefully it gets greenlit. If so, I think there's a lot more story to tell in this world. I think we have great characters. I think we've set up a good world. We did pretty solid on sales, and IDW has not done a sequel to any originals yet. So here's hoping. Keep it. If you believe it, it will come. As we talked about earlier, like tell people to buy that trade paperback. They are paying attention to those sales. If you want more of your favorite series, you have to support it financially. You have to put your money out there for it, and spread the word. So, please, July 4th, pick them up. I'm going to be doing another signing tour all through the summer and fall for those. Some of the same spots, some new ones. I'm hoping to get out to some West Coast stores this time. But yeah, so July 4th, which it's always weird when new release day is on a massive holiday like that.
Strange.
So generally people don't go into the stores on July 4th, but you can change that, folks, because the trade, it's out there. It's evergreen. You can sell through that thing forever. So pick it up when you're in stores in July.
Well said. Now, with the last, 15 minutes, if you guys don't mind, you guys can continue. Let's pivot a little. No, I enjoyed talking Crashing because, like I said, I just reread it and it was definitely, fresh in my brain. And there's a couple of things I had to touch upon because, first of all, praise where praise is due. It's a great book, and people should support it. And it's a unique concept that I really, really dig. But what's not so unique is what we watched last night, Matthew. It's been around forever. However, it was fantastic top to bottom. I have to say, it blew the doors off my mind.
What a crowd. What a crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
It's another great example of a crowd can really bring a show an extra 3-4 levels. And you could also see the performers were elevated because of how great that crowd was.
Absolutely. Like, the only thing comparable to it in recent memory is Clash at the Castle.
And Montreal. I would disagree with that. I think Elimination Chamber, Montreal, they were hot. They were great for that one, too. If you want to go more recent.
It was the one-trick pony, though. It was the main event that was hot. It wasn't the whole show.
You can go back. I think they were still pretty hot for a lot of that show. They knew they were on camera, and they knew they wanted WWE to come back. And, I mean, that's the smart thing, right? And look at AEW's doing it with the UK and Wembley is they're finding marketplaces that are starving for these big events that have not had them for many, many, many years. And those crowds are coming out and saying, come back, right? They're like, we're going to give you all this energy. Come back. Keep coming back. We need you. We want you. We will make it worth your while. And last night was an incredible example of a crowd that was ready for an event of this. 18 years since the last pay-per-view was there. They knew what they had. They knew the opportunity, and they took it.
Right. And if you go back and watch New Year's Revolution 2005, that was such a shit show. It was such a terrible show.
Elimination Chamber was pretty good. The main event was pretty good. But yeah, it was a one-trick pony show.
Exactly. But this, top to bottom, right from the gate, right from Bianca and Io, they never stopped. And one thing I noticed, there was, other than the commercials, there was zero lulls.
There was no filler. There was no filler.
Which was really good. I was super impressed. What I also liked was I went in being like, all right, yep, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. They still managed to surprise me in many, many ways.
Same.
I thought Bianca was going to win, but that was a stellar match. There was a couple of shots where you're like, oh crap, Io could pull it out.
And again, like the crowd was so there for it. They made you believe. And man, what a great storytelling at the end there to tease the breakup of Damage Control. That Bayley, and I wasn't sure they caught it on camera, but in the replay they verify it. But so the end of the match is Bayley is holding Bianca's ponytail to try and hold her down, and the ref catches her doing it. And you see Io, but Io's got her back to Bianca because she's on the turnbuckle getting ready for the moonsault. But you do see Io, the camera catches it, where Io is looking at Bayley going, what are you doing? Basically. And it delays her to the point where the ref then calls it, she misses the moonsault, and that's how Bianca gets the win. So they're really teasing the breakup very, very well and teasing potentially Io breaking out as a single star. And I think she made a case for herself last night.
Absolutely. I
so
think
smartly done.
Storyline wise,
so smartly.
Everything was propelled storyline wise. I would say if there was only one weak point, if you had to call it a weak point and it was still good, would be the triple threat between Lashley, Austin Theory, and Bronson Reed, which was still good. It was
good. It was the least surprising. It was exactly what you expected it would be.
That's not always a bad thing, though. Sometimes
not a bad thing.
Like something just being what you expect it to be is often rarer than it. Like, oh, that's really good, or it was okay. It's like, no, you know what? That was exactly what I expected it to be, and it was exactly what I needed it to be.
There's a reason formulas work in storytelling. You know what I mean? Agreed. Like it's not a bad thing to stick to formula. It's a bad thing when you execute the formula shitty.
Yes.
Like that's the difference.
So to tangent very quickly, there's an author called John Gwynne who did a series called The Faithful and the Fallen. It's like a 4-book series, and it's a love letter to traditional heroic fantasy. And it's like literally follows the formula almost exactly, and it's glorious because of it. But it's where it shines. His action scenes they just blow you out of the water as the story goes on, but they don't really work as well if you don't already have an idea as to I know how this is going to pan out for the most part. But so that way you don't need to, you can just enjoy the prose and the journey as opposed to trying to second guess what he's doing.
Well, and I think sometimes, Alex, and you've been now sort of starting to dip back and forth between the companies with AEW and WWE. I think that is somewhat more the AEW ethos, is like they are writing television and creating stories for the smart fans, the people who have very intimate knowledge of what that story structure is for pro wrestling storytelling. Whereas WWE is still trying to appeal more to a casual, never before, somebody who's not really familiar with the storytelling structure of pro wrestling. And I think they're both right. You know what I mean? Like that's not a knock on AEW. That's not a knock on WWE. I think it's two different philosophies of storytelling and who your audience is. And so I think that if you aren't intimately familiar with pro wrestling storytelling structure, AEW might be a little bit more challenging than WWE is. My theory, one person's opinion.
I think it's a very valid opinion, because the best case scenario, they both need to be alternatives to each other. Yes. They can't be carbon copies, because that's what we saw with WCW towards the end. They were like, oh, this worked in WWE. Let's just copy it and do it here. And it just flopped and destroyed them. So that's why I hope AEW doesn't follow suit with creating a secondary title and be different. Take a chance, do something different. But you and I were talking, and I thought it was going to be decent because I thought he'd be protected and he'd be like insanely over in his home country. But that Bad Bunny street fight versus Damian Priest, you're right. It could be a match of the year candidate. The way the whole thing was packaged, that was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I felt so horrible for the 6-man match having to go after that, because that crowd like just gave every ounce of energy they had up to that point. But it was a phenomenally laid out match. All the little nostalgia worked well. The Judgment Day LWO storyline plays into it. Bad Bunny was absolutely protected. Priest was protected with the leg injury. And they executed it so well, so freaking well.
Priest,
and I mean,
a madman for him, and made him look so damn
good. So good. That was pro wrestling, folks. If you want to know what pro wrestling is, that's pro wrestling. Is that match in a nutshell? It was absolutely glorious.
That could have been the main event. Had I known in advance that was how it was going to be the end result, that could have easily been the main event.
But you know what? I appreciate, to Triple H's credit, and I think this is a Triple H call. Triple H said, no, the main event is the baby face that we are trying to build to be the next guy. And they gave that baby face a clean win over the monster. Right? And I didn't think he would win. I thought, okay, Cody's gonna look great, and then he's going to get demolished, and he's going to lose. And part of the story is Cody has to rebuild himself to be that guy, and he's going to have to build himself to beat Brock at the next show in Jeddah or something. But no, they went the opposite way. They flipped it. They gave me the result I wanted, but didn't think I was going to get. And again, he's clean. It's a clean win. And for all you out there who are like, blood really adds to the presentation, guess what? You got some blood in Puerto Rico from Brock. Yeah. And yes, it did add to the presentation in this case.
So my question to you, do you think Brock bled the hard way, or was that a blade job gone wrong?
No. I think if that was a blade job, that was one of the best blade jobs in the history of blade jobs. Brock has a history of opening people up and opening himself up the hard way. He knows how to do it. Right. And Cody, bless his heart, as soon as he saw that cut, you see him give those short punches to the cuts, and he twisted his knuckles as he did it to help open it up, which is an old school way of doing it. You look at like Hogan and Savage at WrestleMania 5, Savage does the exact same thing to Hogan's eye to help open up that cut. It's an old school way of doing it. You didn't need the blade job for it. They have a no blood policy. What I thought was amazing is that the doctors did not come down to stop the bleeding the way that they did with Finn Balor and Edge at Mania, which maybe it's in part because they're in Puerto Rico. Maybe they have different health guidelines for sporting events. Perhaps. I don't know. Maybe it's because people were way too scared of Brock. I don't know.
I was worried that Brock was going to go into business for himself when he saw how much he was bleeding. And Cody, I was like, oh my God, he's going to absolutely fuck Cody up. But he didn't. He was a professional. And that
Brock's a pro.
Imagery of Cody covered in blood just made him even more over than you can imagine.
He looks like a guy that could slay a dragon, which is exactly what you wanted. But it's a quick win, so Brock is protected, and there's room for a rematch now as well. Yep. But Cody still got the win, which is what he needed.
Yep, agreed. And amazing I like result. Commentary saying he's a big game hunter because the whole thing was saying that he's not the victim, Brock is the prey. Yep. They sold it so well.
They sold it incredibly. Commentary was fantastic all night long.
Agreed.
The 6-man match, the Bloodline storyline, also had great progression. They got the win, which they needed, but Solo looks like the star. There's still more dissension. Yep. The storytelling was on point all the way through the show. It was top to bottom a great show.
Absolutely.
Alex, I hope you have a chance one day to watch it. And it was under 3 hours, Alex. It was not a super long show.
That's my magic mark, is if it's under 3 hours, I can usually watch it. I'm going on vacation Monday. Well,
where are you going?
We're going down to Florida.
Oh, what part?
Orlando. We're specifically going to Disney World as well. We're going. My wife is a huge Disney fan, and I am also. We're going to the parks down there, and there's been
Galaxy.
Yeah, we're staying at All Star Music, I think.
Cool.
So
Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I will say, Alex, if you want to write this off as a business trip, just go visit a Coliseum of Comics one time while you're down there, or go to the A Comic Shop, which is also a geek bar as well as a wonderful store. It would be worth the 30 minutes of your time, and just write it off on your taxes the entire trip. Enjoy.
Do you know what? That's a very legitimate thing that I could do, but I don't know. We don't make.
You will have time. Yeah.
Well, not even that. We yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where me and taxes are up here and down there are different.
Oh, that's a good point. That's right. Because you're in Canada, where taxes make sense.
That's
Canada.
You think they would take me, Alex, if I moved up to Canada? Would they accept me? It's very hard, from what I hear.
It's not easy. No. I passed my citizenship test back in December, and I still haven't heard. I provisionally passed it. I should clarify. I haven't heard back yet. When the next step is. It would be almost 6 months. So it also takes a long time.
That's fair. Well, I can't wait for the day you get the formal the formalized citizenship for you.
Same, because it's going to make it so much cheaper coming down to the States. I won't have to pay. Like, I won't have to pay for like the temporary visas that I need to get, because as a Canadian, there's a different level of agreement, I guess, between the governments.
So you would have dual citizenship, right, with the UK and Canada?
Yeah, I'll keep dual citizenship. So I'll make sure I keep I'll keep both passports, because that'll make, and then travel with both too, because that'll be easier.
Right.
Unless I'm just going to the States, in which case I'll just take my Canadian one.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. But yeah, no, I mean, the show top to bottom, incredible. Very unlikely that the next show, like, I don't think Saudi's going to beat this, just because.
No, I don't think so. But I will say, WWE, they're 4 for 4 this year. Rumble, Elimination Chamber, Mania, now Backlash. They're 4 for 4. They're in a dud in the bunch, folks. They're on a tear right now. And
they did this without Roman Reigns, which is absolutely.
There was no world title match on this show.
No.
None. No. And they did not have, to your point, they did not have the single biggest draw of the entire company on that show.
Yeah, agreed.
I feel like Cody is like, as an outsider,
he's making his case.
He's making a case of being a very big draw, and I think he needed this PPV to be the main event without Roman Reigns.
He did it at Hell in a Cell last year too, like this, and this is how you make the guy be the guy. Is he's the main event even without the title?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like it's Cena had this too on occasion when he didn't have the belt. He was still the main event. Like this is how it's the slow play, folks. You don't hotshot the guy. The guy never gets hotshotted. Cody is building his equity to being the face of the company by doing events like last night.
It was a very strong follow-up to the Mania loss.
Extremely. And people who were worried that, oh no, they're going to misuse Cody now and make him lose 5 pay-per-views in a row. Guess what? Y'all can chill out. The Golden Boy is fine.
You mean just Alex on Twitter?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh my God, yeah. His crazy, like, oh my God, they've ruined Cody. Like every week they're ruining Cody. They're doing the booking wrong. It's like, dude, you couldn't have done the booking better last night. I didn't expect it. And it came out super strong. The only thing I will say, and I said this to my buddy, who we do a wrestling podcast, and we did it last night live, I would say that you don't want Cody to get that new world title. Like,
no.
You don't.
You want Cody to stay focused on Roman.
Exactly.
Yep. And I bet they will. Brock could cost him a chance at that title now.
That's what I think is going to happen. Yeah.
And it would make absolute booking sense. And then you have the Brock Cody rematch in Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
And then Cody can go on, and I think you have a chance with Money in the Bank. That's where he sees the next path to getting to Roman, right? Because Money in the Bank winner can challenge anybody. So that would be your next storytelling off ramp to get him back to Roman this year if you want to do it.
Right. I agree with that, because I think they're poised to have Seth be the first title holder of that new title.
Hope so.
And I'm very okay with it. Very okay with it.
But you got options. You got options. That's the
got so many options. You got Finn if you really want to elevate him. You even said you got Drew if you want to turn him heel or elevate.
Drew heel, make him the champ, and then have all the thing about Raw right now is they've got more baby faces than heels.
Exactly.
So it makes sense to have a heel champion on Raw because you have more people for that guy to work with. Unless you start turning people heel, and you could accomplish both if you turn Drew heel and give him the belt, and also it will shut up the online chatter that people are speculating over his contract and this and that and the other. Like, guys, he had a year before his contract is up. Relax already.
Don't go anywhere.
The company's doing too much. He's in too good of a place, especially now that they are creating the World Heavyweight Championship. Drew is in a great spot. So I think he's just injured more than anything else. He's had neck problems for 3 years now. And Sheamus got powerbombed onto his neck at Mania. Like,
that was ugly. But I mean, you have so many options. You could have Sammy be a title holder and Kevin get jealous.
Could be a title holder.
Or you could have KO, who's really long overdue for another title reign.
I would argue that, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great time to be a WWE and a wrestling fan.
And an AEW fan. It's a great time to be both.
Agreed. But unfortunately, guys, I got to run. So you guys can carry on without me. But this was an absolute pleasure. Matthew, please keep coming back.
I would love to.
And you guys take care. Alex, you close it out.
Sure. Matthew, I know you're on Twitter at Matthew Klein 316, and I believe Instagram is Mac the Knife
1116.
11. I knew there was a 16, but I didn't know what the first number was.
Yeah, it was 316. So Matthew Klein 316 on Twitter and TikTok, and then on Instagram it's Mac the Knife 1116. Because I never thought in my life I would need to have social media handles for promoting anything I did. So I didn't make them all the same. That's silly branding. If you're getting out there and you're going to start making a brand out of yourself, I did it wrong. You do it right. Also, my new webcomic, The Rhyme Scheme, is now available on Tapas. They come out weekly for 10 weeks. The first 2 chapters are there. It is free to read. It will take you a grand total of 90 seconds to 2 minutes to read each chapter. Highly recommended if you want hard-edge, hard-boiled detective fiction in that Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips vein of storytelling. It's a lot of fun. I have a great artist named Rich Wazicki on it, lettered by Nick Philpott. This is the second series that we're doing with our main character, P.I. Mason Rhyme. It's a real good one. Highly recommend. Alex, I will give you the link if you wouldn't mind putting it in the show notes. So people.
I was going to ask you if I could have the link so I could add that in.
Absolutely. So, read it and let me know on social media what you think of it.
Yeah, and I think that is pretty well all we have for today. It was, like I said, thank you very much for coming on. Or like Joe said, thank you for coming on. It was a very impromptu invite. I think I don't even know what time it was, Joe, because I didn't read everything until very late last night. But
I think it was like in the middle of the show. It was like 9:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, so like, it was one of those,
hey, do you want to come on at 9:30 in the morning? And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah,
anytime.
It was a 12-hour turnaround. So I mean, again, thank you so much. So this is actually coming out in a week. So whatever a week is, May 14th.
Sure.
Easy. Exactly. Yeah. I always enjoy when the dates are like that.
Yeah.
So we folks, will bid you adieu. Have a great time, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.